That's different. Right. They have lots of money now.
No, they don't. Stop. No, stop. Well, one of the things that we brought up was, what are the markets?
Okay.
Where's Hayden?
Because
The kids wanted to know if they could get their papers signed now.
Really? I told them I have to wait. It's not fair.
I said, no, we have to make sure you stay.
I said the purpose is to see the meeting in action. I said, you're going to see some stuff tonight. Oh, okay. Well, are you like, what are you, an aunt or something, or granddaughter?
It's Barry's two granddaughters.
Two granddaughters.
Yeah,
I said, I'm from Easton.
Shelby and Casey.
You're from Easton, I'm from Easton. Don't go to Peg. And they said, well,
They
I can't.
can't.
I got to go to my... I said, I'm sorry.
They have to go to Peg.
Yeah, I'm not accepting it. Who's your teacher? I said,
Laura?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Northampton County Council meeting of April 20th, 2017 to order. Please rise for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Zembo, can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Bennell?
here.
Mr. Kuzic?
Present.
Mr. Dietz?
Here.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Here.
Mr. Geisinger?
Present.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Vaughn?
Oh, I think that's yours.
Present. It's all mine.
And Mr. Warren?
Here.
All are
Don't
present
press one.
except one by phone.
All present, one electronically. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 6, 2017 meeting.
Approval by acclamation.
Moved by Mr. Kraft, seconded by Mr. Dietz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next is courtesy of the floor. Let's see, I have a few people signed up. First, I'd like to welcome back Mr. Scott Parsons from WinGap.
Ah,
If you don't mind, Mr. Warner's going to join me here.
oh.
Certainly.
It's good seeing most of you. Never mind. I have a few other comments I could make, but we'll let them go.
Let me start that clock,
Yeah,
Mr. President.
I'm here to announce that finally, after a few years of working on this, we have incorporated and started a Friends of Graysdale Foundation. It is a 501(c)(3) that we have everything taken care of that way. We are incorporated. We have our EIN number. We can raise money up to $25,000 right now. And then we have to go for another step. It's first we need money to do that. So we are in the process, but we are up and running. I think it should have been in the Northampton County Reporter either today or tomorrow or early next week. It'll be in there. And we have to introduce it in one other newspaper that'll be coming out. Let me talk a little bit about the Friends of Graysdale. I'll read our mission. The Friends of Graysdale Foundation is an independent public charity dedicated to encouraging community-wide participation and there we go. And there you go, Bob. Read that for me. Here, Bob, read this.
The Friends of Graysdale Foundation is an independent public charity dedicated to encouraging community-wide participation and philanthropy to ensure the continued care at Graysdale. Our mission is to develop strong community involvement through fundraising efforts that promote programs that will enhance the quality of life and care to those in need at Graysdale.
Everything that we do will come back before this board. It will all be gifts to the county. Our goal is the citizens of Graysdale and the well-being of the Graysdale itself. our goal is not to do anything, salaries, benefits, things like that towards the employees and the running of Graysdale. We are just there to help. If we need beds, and we can buy some beds, if we can, do capital projects that we have money for. One of our committees is a charitable purpose committee that's going to be set up, that we're going to meet with the people of Graysdale, the administration here, a wish list that we can work on, and hopefully people will be able to donate money, tax exempt, that we'll be able to donate back. The first thing I want to tell you with that is our post office box. So I want everybody to write this down and send their checks. Post office box 138, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, 18072. And it's the Friends of Graysdale Foundation.
18064.
180, I'm saying, 64. I'm 72. I'm in Pin Argent.
I was to say, you said it was Pin Argent.
You're right. That's our, we're just getting started. We've been meeting a couple months. We have our board of directors that I'd like to introduce a few people here. I'm the president of the board. Our vice president of the board, who's not with us tonight, is Janet Meese. Our secretary is Luann Vogel. Our treasurer is Phil Rissmiller. Phil is here. Directors at large are Rosemary Fair, Mary Ellen Smoyer is here, Mary Ellen Ertl, who is here, Karen Curcio from Penarja, who is not here with us tonight, and Mr. Werner. So we have a 9-member board. Our next meeting
Oh,
is,
you gotta turn it off.
thank you.
Got to.
I have to hurry because I'm only given 5 minutes. I know. Our next meeting is Monday, May 8th at 7 o'clock at the Graysdale. We meet in the conference room at Graysdale. And that's about all I can tell you right now. I just wanted to introduce us and tell you that we're here to help. We have a fundraising committee and we'll general in our purpose committee, charitable purposes, that we will be meeting with the people here to make a wish list, and we're working on who we're sending letters out to and who we're going to go see, knock on doors, and get after some money. This is something I know Bob and I have talked about for a long time, and I know Peg has been part of this in a little bit in the beginning of getting this started. I know years ago when I sat up here, and I remember reading a newspaper, I won't use names or anything, but people donate $5 million to Lehigh Valley Hospital and donate $1 million here, 50,000 here. We got a great facility and great needs, and when people can write charitable checks, hopefully they're going to step forward. I mean, we just look, and I just think about going to the vendors that supply Graysdale, the medical people and the pharmacies and things like that. I mean, they should easily, be able to help us in this way. I know we started out with our first donation was a pretty nice donation. We won't talk about from who or whatever, but it got us up and running, got us our checkbook going, and got us enough money to get started. So hopefully it'll turn into something big. Whatever we do is going to be good. I look forward to coming back here many times with gifts for the county and things that are needed at Graysdale. Bob, there's a couple things you want to say.
First of all, I wanted to welcome Scott back. I appreciate him being here. A couple important things. It's a tax incentive program for corporations and philanthropists who want to donate time or money or goods to Graysdale. That's it, period. I'm not going to say anything further. Has nothing else to do with anything else. This is how to get money from people, from corporations who want to give money, donate. We never had it in place. It's finally in place. It's a 501c3. I also want to give some kudos to Dr. April Knives, who's a representative from Congressman Matt Cartwright's office, to State Rep Bob Freeman, who also has been a part of the programs, and also to Kathy Miller, who's the director of the Easton Foundation for Easton Schools, who has been fundamentally behind the scenes. It takes a lot of paperwork, guys. It took about 3 years, and it has to be. It's not a boilerplate. You can't do it that way. Okay? Not with Graysdale. So, but I want you to know that Scott's always been there, and you guys I know have been behind a lot of things that have happened, and this is going to be a good thing for the taxpayers and a good thing for Graysdale, and I thank you for your time, and I thank Scott for everything he's done, and the committee that's here.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, welcome back.
Awesome.
Questions?
Nope.
Nothing. Very thorough.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Then next, Scott Fogel, Lehigh Township.
Good evening.
Welcome
again.
back.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. First, I just wanted to ask the panel if there was any other questions they may have had after the last meeting I attended. I know there was a lot of information that I threw out there, a whole lot of documents that I gave you. So I was hoping they had a chance to sift through that, look at it. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to try and answer them. If there's anything that I can answer.
I think we spent a considerable amount of time yesterday regarding this issue, and I think, a couple of us have a plan that we're going to discuss later. I hope it's satisfactory, but we'd like to see you made whole, and for me personally, I would like to see your center remain open. I think it's a valuable resource, and I think that we're going to have a discussion later, and I hope that it'll, at least move this thing forward.
Okay.
So.
I appreciate that. There's just a couple of things I had just to add, just to kind of give you a little bit more information. I did a little bit of digging around, and I understand last night there was a 20% reclamation rate that was thrown out there, and by that number, after last year for 2016, our center had processed 211 people. That equates to 63,300. At 20%, that's 12,660. So that covers more than a full year of what those fees would be. And this year, 17 already, there's been 53 people through the center. And after you take that down to 20%, that's another 3,180. So you're at 15,840 right there. So it's not like it's not solvent. It's not like it isn't bringing in even the bare minimum that needs to cover it just to keep the fees afloat. Again, we've been doing all the processing ourselves, which is not an issue for us. With the numbers that come into us, we can handle that without any problem. We supply all the supplies that need to be replenished. That comes out of my budget. We're not asking for any of that stuff, just maintenance fees. So I just don't want there to be any misunderstandings in any of that. If there was any misunderstandings or misconceptions of what I was trying to put together here, this was not to be anything other than an enhancement for our public safety to keep cops on the road. It's as simple as that. What I can tell you is going back to 2011 when the initial booking center plan was submitted to PCCD, I can tell you that, and I got this verified from PHEs and from PCCD, Bob Ardner, that the plan wasn't approved at that time and it was sent back for some revisions for some concerns they had. And for whatever reason, that sat idle. It never got handled. Through the process of getting Lehigh Township's central booking up there situated, I got feedback when they added our name to the plan, and basically that the plan was never approved. So for that 5-year period, there was never any fees being collected at all. So there's a big window there where there was, however many people went through processing that never were assessed this fee that the county, in the booking center plan had put in place. So that, I'm not quite sure why that happened, but that's just for your information. If you want, I actually have a copy of the letter that came through to me that was forwarded from the PCCD that was to the county regarding the areas that were missed that needed to be readdressed. Just a couple of things that this center has done for the county. It's made things a lot easier for the western portion of the county, not just for the police, keeping cops on the road, but even for the people that find themselves in the misfortune of getting arrested. If you have somebody that's over in the Walnutport area, Moore Township, any of those outlier areas, if you will, it's a 45-minute ride that they need to make over here too. And if they don't have means of transportation, because there's no bus service back and forth, they have a problem. And that may be some of that gap that you see where people go under the radar and they don't get processed. This helps minimize that even further. A couple other things, it's lessened the burdens on the other booking centers. It's people that don't need to come all the way over here. For a variety of reasons, that helps out. It's led to the arrests of several wanted people, whether it was for immigration warrants, whether it was local in-state warrants and out-of-state warrants. There was 10 instances, again, over the last year that we had dealt with that, where people came in and they were processed as a suspect because we couldn't figure out who they were otherwise. and it turned out they had warrants for their arrest. One was a gang member. I mean, this is stuff that is very important. This is not stuff that you want to just let linger and ignore. So really, there's no doubt that this can be sustained and that it's definitely a good program and definitely something that's a benefit. And, you know, one other thing that I just want to hit on as well, because this was very integral at the very onset of getting this booking center plan put together, was our county's MHMR crisis team. Wendy Heatley was very helpful with this, wrote a really nice letter of support, which I supplied to you. You know, one of the things that when I first started in Lehigh Township, one of the very first instances where I had to deal with central booking was with somebody with a mental health issue. And if you have any interaction with people that have mental disabilities or mental illness, putting them in the back of a confined police car and driving them from all the way across the county, possibly handcuffed in the back of that car if need be, you know, you're really causing a lot of hardship and detriment to somebody who's really having a lot of complications and difficulties as it is. You know, so this is another way that that kind of helps enhance that as well.
Okay.
You know, so that's really all I have.
All right. Any questions? We'll take this up. We have an item on the agenda to address it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Do I have a Catherine Gumlock? Is she, you could,
Good
Welcome.
evening. Thank you for putting me on your agenda. I understand you were going to prepare a written proclamation.
yes, I have it right here. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, I would,
okay.
please.
Whereas the citizens of Northampton County value their health and that of their families and support programs that raise awareness of public health and issues such as Lyme disease, and whereas Pennsylvania is the #1 state in the nation for the number of Lyme cases with 12,092 cases logged in 2016, which is a 35% increase over the previous year, and Northampton County had 1,650 new cases in just 1 year. And whereas Lyme disease is contracted from the bite of a tick, often the size of a poppy seed, and the ticks in Northampton County transmit other diseases such as Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And whereas Lyme disease is a complex, multi-system illness, which if caught early can be easily treated with antibiotics, but if untreated or untreated can cause serious, permanent, and sometimes life-threatening damage to the brain, joints, heart, eyes, liver, spleen, blood vessels. And whereas children are at the highest risk of contracting Lyme disease and are frequently unaware of receiving a tick bite, and whereas the best solution to reduce the risk of contracting Lyme disease is awareness and education about the seriousness of the illness and the need to practice personal preventative techniques when engaging in outdoor activities, now therefore it is hereby resolved that the Northampton County Council in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania does hereby proclaim May 2017 as Lyme Disease Awareness Month throughout the county of Northampton. In so doing, we encourage Northampton County residents to further educate themselves about Lyme disease and take appropriate prevention measures while also supporting those who suffer from this debilitating disease. And we're presenting this from the members of Northampton County Council on this 20th day of April 2017.
Thank you.
If you'd like to approach, you can. Photo?
You with me?
Sure.
Thank you.
Wow.
We would like to use this to help raise awareness.
Wow, nobody wants to take my picture.
You want me to take pictures? All right. I have to take the picture. And I have to take Cusick's picture?
Wait, don't you have bad hands?
Since you...
You're all trying to get out of it.
Okay. I'll do it for your camera. I'll take two. Okay? I didn't say what's going to happen with his frame. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
How about it?
Thank you very much for issuing this proclamation. I am the co-facilitator of the Lehigh Valley Lyme Disease Support Group, and we've been in existence for about 6 years, and during that time about 300 people have come through our doors. They have ranged from people who are newly infected to people who are as seriously ill as was described in the proclamation. And so what the best cure for Lyme disease is prevention. If you develop a case of summer flu, likely it's not the flu, it is likely Lyme disease. And if it's treated right away, there's a 100% cure rate, provided you're adequately treated. If you do not realize that you have been bitten and you don't recognize symptoms and it takes a year or two, then it is much harder to take care of, and people can become very, very ill. Approximately 20% of people who have that kind of infection do become seriously ill. So I'd like to just take a few minutes to tell you what you can do so that you don't have to worry about any of these infections. It's good to know that although we call the tick that is responsible for transmitting this disease a deer tick, and part of the 2-year life cycle of the tick is on deer, it's really the small rodents that are running around in our yards and parks, like the white-footed mouse, chipmunks, rabbits, groundhogs, opossums. All of these animals carry the tick, and the white-footed mouse is the one that is the most problem to so far as spreading the disease throughout our landscape and then onto people and animals that pass by. Deer tick cannot fly, and they don't drop down out of trees, contrary to what you may have heard. But they are low to the ground in the early part of their life cycle, and they do what we call questing. They stand on their hind legs. They have 8 legs. They're in the same genus as spiders. So they stand on their hind legs and they quest, and they put their front legs out. And so as an animal or a person passes by, they grab on. It's usually down near your ankles and feet, and then they crawl upwards. And they will crawl upwards until they meet something like your belt where they can't get past that, and that may be likely where they attach. So you want to be aware also of places that are white-footed mice are likely to be, like wood piles, loose stone walls. Those would be places not to sit. It's also recommended that you don't sit on the ground unprotected. Maybe spread out a tarp or something if you're going to be gardening so that you're kneeling on that. It's also good to dress appropriately. There is a school in Chester County where the nurse and the principal were very concerned because every day after spring recess, about 30 children were showing up in the nurse's office with attached ticks. And so the nurse and the principal got together and sent letters home to the parents saying, your child may not have outdoor recess unless we have a letter on file from you saying that you will daily treat your child's shoes and socks. It was springtime, the children were wearing shorts. But just by treating shoes and socks, the daily number of children in the nurse's office dropped below 10. And that was because they were treating the shoes and socks with a chemical called permethrin. It is an insecticide, and if a tick crawls onto a surface that is treated, it dies. You need to treat clothing. I treat my gardening pants as well as my shoes and socks with permethrin. You do it when you're not wearing the clothing because it is toxic when it is wet. So I spray my clothing until it is damp. I let it dry outside, and then when I wear it, the ticks are repelled.
Okay.
On your skin, it's good to use an insect repellent, and those aren't insecticides, so you need to keep reapplying most of them. But a combination of a skin repellent and permethrin really, really does help. When you come in, it's good not to take your clothing off in your bedroom and throw it onto the bed or upholstered furniture or drop it on a carpet, because if there are ticks on your clothing, they are then free to crawl around and recirculate, and you may find them attached to you at a later time.
Okay. Would you like to wrap
Up,
a little bit?
I'll be glad to. So protect yourselves. One thing that I think you as a county council might consider is signs that are available through the CDC that you could put in county parks to alert people to the fact that they need to take precautionary measures. And I'm wondering if I might have permission to put 4 handouts about how to properly remove a tick from you if you find one, and prevention. Could I lay them on the table?
Sure, if you want to lay them on the back table. We got plenty of young people that probably
That
might want to
hopefully will
protect themselves.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, that was all I had under courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? Okay. All right, there being none, next item on the agenda is the confirmation of appointments, and I'll call on Mr. Kraft at this time to introduce those.
Personnel Committee met yesterday, and we have the following resolution. Be it resolved by Northampton County Council that the following individuals shall be confirmed in their reappointments as indicated hereafter. General Purpose Authority, we have the reappointment of Sean M. Donahue, MBA, Bethlehem, PA, and J. Michael Dowd from Easton, PA, term to expire 12/31/21. Open Space Advisory Board, we have the reappointment of Victoria Bastidas of Bethlehem, PA, and Judith Henkel from Mount Bethel, PA, term to expire 3/18/19. Also, along with them, we have Claire Wildermuth Sadler from Bethlehem, PA, and R. Michael Topping from Bethlehem, PA. Also, term to expire 3/18/19, and we so moved unanimously yesterday.
Okay, any further discussion on these appointments? There being none, we'll move for the vote.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Fennel?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. Next item up is the Controller's Report. Mr. Barron, do you have anything this evening?
We have some.
Good evening, members of council. I just have 3 quick things. First of all, thank you, everybody, for your diligence yesterday and working through the whole. I wanted to prevent the staff time in an audit if I possibly could, because we have a lot of projects to get to. So thank you for listening to my concerns and understanding. The second is the external auditors have finished. Everything seems to be moving well. They're now into the report writing phase. And one of the things, I think I conveyed this in the memo before last meeting, which I unfortunately could not attend. We hope to be able to sit down with them and figure out what works, what doesn't work. There was a lot of collegiality that didn't exist with the last group, which we found very refreshing. And having them in the conference room downstairs close to us is good. Also, they took our staff out on the audits, like a lot of us did the field work, and then they took the staff out on these audits with them. There was not, we kind of knew what their schedule was. We could clear up any issues. And I think Mary Alice and the administration will appreciate that, because there will be no surprises in the management letter when all is said and done. We should also probably get a draft report of that as well to go over to make sure there are no errors, omissions, and if there are any corrections. So,
can we expect them, next month or June, or what's the timetable?
I think it's been traditionally like June, July, depending on when the Finance Committee meeting is and when the report is actually released and it's digested and scheduling and things like that. So I know that they're aware of who's on the Finance Committee. I'm sure they'll reach out to Linda and then have Mr. Geisinger place them on the agenda. Last but not least, I forwarded you a memo on Monday relating to increased expenditures. As part of my year-end work, I look for line items that might not necessarily be material to the budget or material to the financial statements, and bring out budget imbalances and things like that. Mr. Cusick, you've been here when I've done that in the past. And the number that I provided with regard to spending in the Human Resource Department for staff development is now over $20,000. It's $20,501.26.
Yeah, we've reached out to Ms. Trapp, and unfortunately, she was unable to attend.
I understand.
And we're going to look for some response from her as soon as possible, because those were big numbers, but we'd like an explanation.
Absolutely. And in continuation of this, I wanted to alert you to that bigger number, because there is a P-card audit coming up that is going to delve in. A lot of these purchases were done with the P-card. And there are already things in the P-card policies and procedures that have been violated, not just in that department, but elsewhere within the county. So we're going to look at that universally to sort of bring it into check. And I wanted to be forthcoming with council, because when those big numbers get thrown around, or percentages like that get thrown around, I've heard you say this too, Mr. Cusick, where's the controller? So I just wanted to let you know I'm here communicating that information to you, and I made a suggestion, so I would really be happy to go back and forth with regard to some oversight in that, not to hamper routine training though, obviously. Thank you very much.
Anything for Mr. Barron? Nope. Next is the County Executive's Report. Mr. Brown.
Hi, good evening, Council.
Welcome.
Just a few quick comments on the prior item on the training for HR and the expense that Mr. Barron's bringing forth. I got the memo handed to me this morning. I went through it, reviewed it. What I can assure Council, and Ms. Trapp unfortunately couldn't be here, and we'll go through this in more detail. There's just a few comments. The large numbers that you're seeing in the budget for 2016 in particular were us, with the administration, really building the foundation of human resources. One of the glaring lackings in this county, and it's fairly universal, is the training that we provide to our employees. And that's all levels of, from managers, supervisors, all the way down to how we introduce new technology to the rank and file, the whole thing. As you dig into the numbers and you look at the detail behind some of the training, what you're going to find is, while it's on the human resources budget, it's not a human resource sole number. There's some training for, and some of the trips that were in there were for human resource personnel. But some of the management training covered 5 different departments, individuals that were identified, and beginning to lay this, really the foundation of what we need to be doing in this county. Over time, you will see that we will actually be increasing the annual expenditure on training for our employees. It is really the number one thing that we need to do, and we do take advantage of, whether it be on-site, computer-based training, or in certain cases where we do send people out to travel. So that number, while it's large, is because fundamentally I'm not sure that there was a lot of training built into the system overall. It is one of the primary charges that I've laid out to HR as a core function, is to really begin to build those training platforms. In order to be able to be more transparent with this, we're actually we have a system that we're bringing online that will track by employee the training, the hours, so we can keep an electronic record of all of this, both so our employees can use that for their own personal record. If they're looking to be promoted or bid on jobs, they have a record of what was done. And we have a clear picture based on the direction that they're going in the county overall. Some of the other issues that Mr. Barron brings out in his memo, I disagree with heartily. I won't go into that in the moment. They're opinion-based, and we obviously have different opinions about some of that. But I wanted to give you a snapshot in the absence of Ms. Trapp being here, and we can answer any more particular details when you have the opportunity.
You know, I've been a strong supporter of the CCAP training programs. I think they do a good job, and I encourage our employees to use those whenever possible. You know, and the community colleges do offer some relevant training programs as well. I think the things that stuck out for me were the one trip to Las Vegas and another one to New Orleans.
Sure.
My feeling is that I'm not. I just, the optics of that don't look particularly good. And I guess my question, or when Ms. Trapp is here, what I would like to know is, was that available via webinar or any other?
Yeah, and Ms. Trapp will be made available to answer your questions.
Yeah.
My information was no. Both of those trips, in particular, the one to Vegas, was on NeoGov. That was a system that the county heavily invested in order to expand our ability to recruit employees, new employees, advertising. It was to give us a much broader base. We had changed some of the advertising requirements. If you recall, I think we went from 2 newspapers down to 1. But this is really more an electronic media. Applicants can go online, apply directly online. So it was electronically building that. To bring one new employee and one existing employee up to speed faster on that system and look at additional models of what we can leverage with that particular tool was the purpose of that particular trip. It's also that system that we put in place. I took a quick look. I think last year saved us about $18,000 alone as we're just really getting up to speed with utilizing that type of function. We do look at if there are other means closer to home, online, or those types of things. Our training platform, if you would, which we're just really assembling, it will have all aspects of that for our employees. The trip to New Orleans itself was actually recommended for one employee who's doing the workers' comp. Overall, we did run that for attending past our third-party administrator for workers' comp to get an essence of the value of going there. They highly recommended that we participate in that one particular program. And I don't have the statistics in front of me right now, but workers' comp, the savings that we're realizing in reducing the number of claims, payouts, and so on and so forth is, I believe, well into the 7-figure direction on that. So continue to make sure we're staying current. Workers' comp's always changing, and so is one of those types of things. So that was the basis for that particular trip overall. And whether some of these trips become recurring will really be based on we believe, the technical demands on certain employees. But overall, those are more the exception. Buried in here, which Mr. Barron notes was about $7,000 for management training. That was 5 individuals from 5 different departments at Community College in Northampton County. That one of the core complaints that we have from our employees is if they come up through the system, which we encourage them to, and they move from a non-management into a supervisory role. What we found when we surveyed was they're given the role and not given any training into how to now become a manager or supervisor relative to the work they were doing prior. So they struggle in some cases, which creates a number of ripple effects. If we're not handling those situations right, how do you deal with employees' complaints and just managing overall? So that was a program that was identified, and we sent 5 individuals through at Community College. So.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, this is an area I'm interested in, and I know I told this story to a couple of people. I had a friend he used to work for at Hewlett Packard, and the guy made money for the company and flew a lot and traveled a lot. And as much as he made, he had oversight of of his spending, and they were always looking to see if he could do it cheaper, better, even though the guy was making tons of money for the company. And I also know that from my personal experience in the industry is this idea of conferences and stuff is going down. You know, anybody who is in that business, they know that. So I'm interested in this. I'm interested to see, you know, what the approval process is and what our role is. So between now, probably in the next financial meeting, I'm going to be looking at that and seeing, you know, what exactly is the approval process, and do I have any ideas that we can talk together as a group to see if we're satisfied the way these approvals are going, or do we need, as council, to add any oversight to it? So that's sort of what my plan is. I'm just going to start looking into it and probably try to work with Mr. Geisinger to get that on the financial review committee next month. So I'll be looking at it.
Thank you. Mr. Werner?
Just to add to that, these are questions I will be asking because I think it's only appropriate that when Amy's here we ask them. But I was curious about the fact that the NeoGov system, which is what we're talking about, one of the things it talks about is decreasing your cost per hire in those programs, and based on increasing transparency of expectations and alignment. And we have CCAP and we have SHRM, Valley chapters in the Lehigh Valley, Associates for Human Resource Professionals. We have very large associations in the county that I think we can draw on, including CCAP, as Mr. Cusick mentioned. I'd like to see what research was done into that for these various programs that were presented that may have been redundant or may have even been offered elsewhere.
Yeah, and the SHRM and some of those, CCAP, I agree. I attend the conferences when I can. They have excellent training ongoing with that also. Some of the costs that are in here are making sure our employees are moving towards those certifications and types that are important, like SHRM certification, that type of thing. As we're building out this training base, we're exploring as many options as we can. I don't disagree with Mr. Phillips' comment about continuing to take a look at, hey, can we do it better, faster, cheaper? I think that's been really the hallmark of my administration. We do that everywhere that we possibly can. There are times, though, where, you know, to your best efforts, if there's a particular training that makes sense, do you wait a year? Do you wait, you know, to try to find something local? Or do you get the employee in place so we can begin to leverage that understanding and the technology and some of those types of things? So valid points, and those are the same challenges I put out to her and to the team as we're going through this. By no means are we done looking at how to do this. It is something that I believe, is one of the core foundations and deliverables of human resources overall.
I would also add that for those of us that have traveled to Vegas or maybe been there are Best Western hotels that are reasonably priced.
The training was at that particular location, and I've traveled extensively globally myself, and I understand.
Here's the question I want. Also, you can take it back. I said, do we get a government discount when we get our room rates?
Good question. I would assume there'd be some kind of government discount.
I don't think that was applied in this case.
I don't know. I'll go back and take a look at that. I'll go back. We'll investigate.
Again, these are just now you know what they're going to be. That's all.
Well, and if the participants in that particular all NeoGov, they're all county, cities.
Yes, there are 1,300 of 1,300 people involved in NeoGov right now.
Mr. Bennell?
Mr. Brown, when I saw that email, I reached out to Ms. Trapp to see if she was going to be at the meeting, and then that's when I found out about our accident. I guess my question was, did you get a copy of that report from the controller?
Yes, he actually delivered one this morning to my office.
Okay. My concern is, and I've said this before, and we're in an election year. You have 5 large seats, the executive spots, and to me, this type of report is nothing more than a political football. And the first time I read it, when I contacted Ms. Trapp to see if anybody had contacted her, what her response was, she hadn't even seen the report. So a report comes to council. To me, it's an inflammatory report, and I agree with Mr. Cusick. When you look at it at first sight, there's a couple things that do jump out at you. And I wasn't going to press Ms. Trapp because she had just had her accident, but she says that all can be explained. So I think this is another one of those knee-jerk things that our controller has done to try to make our executive look bad, and I'm just getting tired of it. So at the next meeting, I plan to take some action on the controller, because the controller is a financial position. It's not a political position. It's to me, it's a bean counter position. And I understand that this is one of the areas that technically fall into that position, but if you're going to do an objective report, you talk to both sides. You don't just grab some things, make it inflammatory, and throw it out there and to get the headlines. So I'm tired of it. And because I'm not running for re-election, I'm politically expendable. This is just me as a council person getting tired of our controller using that position as a political pulpit.
Anything else for the executive?
Just as a follow-up, I have no objections to audits. I mean, they do what they do overall, and as a matter of fact, my administration, unlike I believe previously, if you looked at many of the audit reports before my administration, they were the same audits done year over year, recommendations never implemented. None of that. We reached out to members of Mr. Barron's team actively, proactively, and said, before you do an audit, we'd like to sit with you, because you have a particular way of looking at how to audit, and we have concerns when we look at systems, and we want to make sure we can give you our insight, and you can do a more robust audit. And our commitment for doing that was simply, when we're done, which we do get the opportunity typically in a more formal audit, this I don't believe was as formal, is to sit down with and look at the comments, be able to offer explanation. And then we do try to, when we agree with the audit's findings for changes and those types of things, it is passed over to the department head. And that really becomes part of their goal for the year, to make sure we're implementing those changes. If we're spending the money on doing this kind of work, then it's important that those changes do go in the system, so we're continuously making an improvement with that. As I said, I'm more politically correct. I have differing opinions, and were presented in this particular letter, but I wanted to, in Ms. Trapp not being here, just offer some insight. Obviously, she'll be available for more detailed questioning by this body when she's back.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is old business. We had nothing on the agenda. Is there any other old business any members of council would like to raise at this time? No. There being none, we will move then into new business. First item is consideration of personnel requests. Department of Human Services, Children, Youth, and Families Division, and Drug and Alcohol Division. And I'll call on Mr. Kraft to introduce that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzic. It is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that the one full-time position of Caseworker 2 in the Department of Human Services, Children, Youth, and Families Division, pay grade PS-35, salary range $39,446 to $64,312, shall be eliminated, and the one full-time position of Attorney 2 in the Department of Human Services, Children, Youth, and Families Division, Child Protective Law, pay grade HS-45B, salary range $63,085 to $98,883, shall be created effective the 20th day of April 2017. It is hereby further resolved by Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Caseworker 3, pay grade PS-37A, salary range $43,471 to $70,839, shall be created in the Department of Human Services, Children, Youth, and Families Division, effective the 20th day of April 2017. It is also hereby further resolved by Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Clerk Typist 2, pay grade PS-27, salary range $28,024 to $44,699, shall be eliminated in the Department of Human Services, Drug and Alcohol Division, and that the one full-time position of Drug and Alcohol Case Management Specialist, pay grade PS-35, salary range $39,466 to $64,312, shall be created in the Department of Human Services, Drug and Alcohol Division, effective the 20th day of April 2017. Discussed this yesterday in a committee meeting. It was moved forward unanimously to the full council.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? Ms. Franz is here if there's any. I think we covered this in detail yesterday. There being no other comments, let's call for the vote.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
And Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. Next, consideration of personnel request, Department of Public Works. Mr. Kraft, can you introduce that resolution?
It is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that the one full-time position of Operations and Maintenance Supervisor in the Department of Public Works, Graysdale Nursing Home, pay grade CS-28, salary step 4-D, salary $67,425, shall be moved one step to pay grade CS-28, salary step 5-E, salary $70,459, effective the 7th day of April 2017. We discussed this yesterday. It's a single step. The county executive does not need to bring this to us, but he felt transparency was the best course, so.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think it's only fair. You had two employees that essentially had similar job descriptions with different pay grades, so this rectifies that situation. Any further discussion on this item? Call for the vote.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Pass. Sorry, pass. Yes. Sorry, I'm writing.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferrara?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 8 to 1 pass.
8 to
No, did you
0.
vote yes?
Yeah, I voted yes.
He voted
I'm sorry,
yes.
I voted
It was a
yes.
nine.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll-
That's a
I'll
yes.
It was a
hold
yes.
the vote open, so we'll make that unanimous 9-0. Next item under new business, consideration of Article 13 contract approval resolutions. First item is RKR Hess, and I'll call on Mr. Geisinger to introduce that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. As was indicated, during the Personnel and Finance Committee meetings yesterday, we addressed a number of issues. This is the first of the contracts that came before the Finance Committee under Article 13, Section 13-16 of the Administrative Code. And it was proposed that the county executive bring to county council, adopt a resolution endorsing a contract in the amount of $45,300 for a term of 1 year with RKR Hess for engineering and design services for painting of 5 county bridges, bridges 58, 72, 83, 125, and 160. Now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the executive as set forth to approve the contract with RKR Hess. And we so move.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. There being none, we call for the vote.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferrara?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. Then the next item is consideration of Article 13 contract approval resolution, Alfred Benich and Company.
Whereas on March 29, 2017, Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for council to adopt a resolution endorsing a contract in the amount of $199,628 for a term of 18 months with Alfred Benich and Company for the engineering and design services for the replacement of Bridge 115. Now therefore be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth to approve the contract with Alfred Benich and Company, and we so move.
Okay. We discussed this at length yesterday during the committee meeting. Is there any further discussion from council? Okay. There being none, can we call the vote?
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara?
Yes.
And Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Okay, passes unanimously. Next item is consideration of Article 13 contract approval resolutions, Borton Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, under Article 13, this is actually 13-17. There are a number of whereases, and the history of this particular item goes back quite far. I will approach only on the item current to this to this year. Whereas on April 3rd, 2017, Northampton County Council received a request from the executive for council to adopt a resolution endorsing an amendment to a contract with Wharton Lawson for additional oversight construction of Bridge Number 102 in the amount of $56,061.39, of which 95% of the expenditure will be reimbursed by PennDOT as per an agreement 050668 Revision F. The county's share of this increased expenditure, therefore, is $2,803.07. Now, therefore, be it so resolved by Northampton County Council to concur with the executive to approve the amendment to the contract with Wharton Lawson for Bridge Number 102, and we so moved.
Okay, again, this was discussed yesterday during the Finance Committee. Is there any further discussion at this time? There being none, can we call the vote?
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
No.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
And Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 8 to 1.
Passes by a vote of 8 to 1. Next item is consideration of Article 13 Contract Approval Resolution, Wind Gap Electric.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is also under Section 13-16 of Article 13 of the Administrative Code, and this particular item has been vetted for many years, and we are very grateful to be at this point. Whereas on April 11th, 2017, the Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for council to adopt a resolution endorsing a contract in the total amount of $1,950,400, $384,700 of which is for general construction, and $1,565,700 for electrical construction for a term of 1 year to be awarded to Wind Gap Electric for general construction and electrical construction services for the standby generators at Graysdale Nursing Home. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the executive as set forth to award these contracts to Wind Gap Electric, and we moved so.
Okay, again, this was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting yesterday. Is there any further discussion? The only thing I want to add, I think, Mr. Kraft, you raised some valid issues yesterday during the committee meeting. I have seen countless times where we get these low bids, and then what happens?
Absolutely.
You know? Well, we get a change order, and we get another change order, and what winds up happening is that we wind up paying as much as we would have for some of the higher bids. My hope is that this is not what happens in this case. I hope that Wind Gap Electric holds to the dollar amount that they put forward and that we don't have any change orders for this contract. We've waited 4 years to get this right. So my hope is that this dollar amount is stuck to by the contractor. Okay.
I spoke with
Kraft?
Stan a little bit. I feel a little bit better about it with their margins and how they seem to have come to the number, but $500,000 is still a little disconcerting, having that much left on the table, you know, for a bid. The lowest bidder is not always the best, but Wind Gap has a record of being able to, you know, do good work, so I'm hoping for the best, but I wanted to put Stan on notice that we're watching.
Any further discussion?
I think he knows that.
Okay, then we will call for the vote then.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
And Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Passes unanimously. Next is consideration of Article 13 Contract Approval Resolution, Tier Point.
Thank you, Mr. President. As this item was also addressed yesterday under Article 13, Section 13-16 of the Administrative Code, whereas on April 12, 2017, Northampton County Council received a request from the executive for council to adopt a resolution approving a contract for a 5-year term in the amount of $215,034 that includes a one-time implementation fee of $4,230 and a 5-year annual fee of $42,160.80 with Tier Point for Disaster Recovery Hot Site. Now therefore be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the executive as set forth to approve the contract with Tier Point for disaster recovery hot site. And this, as you mentioned, was vetted yesterday at the Finance Committee, and we moved. So,
Any further discussion on the Tier Point IT contract? There being none, we'll call for the vote.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Deep?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
And Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. Next item under new business is consideration of a resolution granting funds from County Council's contingency account to Lehigh Township Central Booking Center. At yesterday's Finance Committee meeting, a lengthy discussion, was held regarding Lehigh Township's interpretation of the county central booking plan and the county's responsibility to cover their bills. Invoices were presented, and a resolution was prepared to take those funds from the county council's contingency and to indicate that a memorandum of understanding was to be drawn up between the county, the city of Bethlehem, and Lehigh Township to determine how things could be handled in the future. And at this time, I'll call on Mr. Geisinger to introduce that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Be it resolved by the Northampton County Council that the sum of $17,680 shall be granted from the 2017 County Council Contingency Fund to the Lehigh Township Central Booking Center to cover the past due and pending invoices to make them current through May 31st, 2017. It is further resolved that a memorandum of understanding shall be established between the County of Northampton, the City of Bethlehem Central Booking Center, and the Lehigh Township Central Booking Center, setting out the rules that are to be adhered to regarding the collecting of fees and the maintenance of centers going forward.
All right. Any further discussion on this item?
Just
Mr.
Just wanted to
Bennell?
acknowledge Chief Fogel and Supervisor Miller for bringing this to our attention. And I know it was a long meeting, but it was informative, so it was nice. But hopefully we can go forward from here. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kraft?
I still maintain my position that we have a central booking system right here. They can drive down and do it. I understand they got their booking system by a grant, and 5 different municipalities use it, and it's a convenience for them. I'm going to agree with giving them the $17,680 out of our contingency fund for this year to get them current, but I don't believe that going further that the county has any obligation to pay for this facility to be used to offset their costs. They understood it when they went into it, when they built it, with funds, not our funds. It's not our facility. I understand the convenience of it. I don't want to see it closed, but I'd like to see that they would get some kind of agreement with the 5 municipalities that surround them and figure out a way to fund it for, $3,000 a year or something. I'm sure they can find the money to keep it going, or else we can close it and they can come down here and centrally book where everybody else is going to centrally book.
Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and my take is this is not a recurring fee. This is something to, as I say, take the wolf off the door. If we have a problem, we have to solve it. But I'm voting on this on the language that's on here, not anything else in regards to what the further funding is or anything else. I think that needs to be really looked at. But I'm looking at it like this is a one-time payment, and that this will take the wolf off the door. They'll keep them going, but I'm not making any statement in regards to what the county's obligation is or is not in the future.
And I agree, and it's our contingency fund. This isn't a budget item. This is our contingency fund that we're using to fund this expenditure for them. So I think everybody should be looking at, the future and how they can keep this center open if it's that important. We have a center. So,
Mr. Geisinger?
I will say, Mr. President, I think this item was beaten heavily yesterday at the Finance Committee meeting.
To the point of gagging.
And everybody who was there had the opportunity to voice their opinion. But I think for the general public, for the people that were not there yesterday, this is one of those examples, I think, where the council, as the elected representatives of the people, to help the public safety to move the item forward to address the safety concerns of the residents of the northwestern tier of the county, feel strongly enough to take that money out of our own pocket, essentially the budget that we have allotted for the contingencies in this county, to fund the center. But I am in wholehearted agreement with my compatriots that that's what this is. It is a one-time payment, and that we move that the executive and a memorandum of understanding must be put in place in order to allow for the further funding of these centers, and that it is spelled out and everybody knows exactly how that's going to be done. It's not a lot of money, and it should not have gotten to this point. But we do feel strongly enough that it needs to remain open. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments or discussion items? Okay. Then may we call for the vote, please? Sure. Mr. Lauer, you wanted to add to the discussion?
Well, I don't know whether I wanted to, but I was asked to before the meeting. I'm assuming that the county central booking plan that we were given is in fact the plan that is currently in effect. And I believe that to be accurate. And with that said, there have been a number of orders entered by the court over the years creating such a plan, taking positions on a number of issues relating to that plan. But the current plan does provide in, pardon me while I make my thumbs work here, in Section 4, that the facilities that will be used for central booking include, number 1, the Northampton County Department of Corrections, number 2, Bethlehem Police Department, and number 3, Lehigh Township Police. So it's part of the plan that the Lehigh Township Police will be doing central booking. Further, in the Section 7 of that same plan, there is a specific provision that the Lehigh Township Police Department funding for the ongoing project would be provided in part by the general operating funds of the Northampton County Prison and the Bethlehem and Lehigh Township Police Department, along with funds charged to persons booked in the central booking facilities. So, I mean, there are provisions built in to fund Lehigh Township. Further, there is, as part of the judicial code, in effect currently, and actually been in effect for quite some time, provisions for a booking center fee, which is to be, and I have to say, this is optional. It is not required of a county, but it provides that once you have a countywide booking center plan, a person may, in addition to any other fines, penalties, or costs, be required by the court to pay a booking center fund fee. That's to be no more than $300, and they have to meet a number of other requirements for that to apply. But it's also my understanding that that has been done, but not necessarily. I'm not sure what happened to the money when it was received, but I would point out that by state law, that fee that gets paid to the county is to be deposited into a special central or regional booking center fund established in the county, and that the money in that fund is to be used solely for the implementation of a countywide booking center plan and the startup, operation, and maintenance of a booking center. So it's not my position to take a position on what council should do, but it's clear to me that the documents currently in effect in this county provide for Lehigh Township to be a central booking center, and for the county in part to pay it. And there's also a provision in state law as to what should happen to those fees. As I'm reading through a series of email exchanges, I don't think anyone understood prior to Lehigh Township beginning to ask questions any of this. I don't think it was on the radar. I'm merely offering this as an explanation of what the law provides.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lauer? Or yeah, Mrs. Farrar?
I just feel that our role is to make things accessible, to take government to the people, to be available and accessible. And I don't think we're being available and accessible when we're asking people in the hinterlands of our county to come down here and into a central booking. I think there's fees involved. I think there can be a memorandum of understanding. I think there can be something resolved that all parties involved, especially with what Mr. Lauer has just informed us, there has to be some rational some rationale to this, that they don't have to come down here to go get booked, to do booking. And I think the county has an obligation to put in a few dollars, as well as the other, maybe the townships, but I think the county has an obligation to put in a few bucks. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Anything else on the resolution? Okay. There being none, can we call for the vote, please?
Mr. Geisenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
And Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. That's all we had under new business. Is there any other new business to come before council this evening? Okay. There being none, we will move then into council committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Mr. Dietz?
We had the Open Space and Parks Committee today. We had a good presentation on the greenways and the different paths that they're trying to connect. And then also, of course, one of the common things we talk about is the tourism and commerce that'll come with that. And they do have some plans with the connection of some of these trails to do that. So that was good.
Any other committee reports? Mrs. Farrar?
You got your invitation for the Conservation District's Envirothon, and they're having, the legislative part of it too. So it's a great event, and I hope some people can come out and at least have lunch. April 27.
Any other committee reports? Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, we had the capital projects and operations and a lot of things that we went through in the finance today in regards to the to bridges and the other capital projects, the Graysdale generators that we discussed at our meeting.
Okay. Mr. Bennell?
I'm not the chair of the Human Services Committee, but earlier it was one of the many things that was brought up at the meeting was that Graysdale does now have a VA contract.
Yeah, that was hoorah.
It's been a long time, but that's great.
All right. Any other committee reports? Council liaison reports? Mr. Werner, then Mr. Phillips.
Well, just to reiterate, the Foundation for Graysdale is established. Your pocketbooks will be opened, and we'll be asking you for some help. And along with the fact that we also found out about the Veterans Affairs programs that are going to be offered, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Graysdale has lots of room for that, and I think they're going to find out that people in the communities are going to find out that Graysdale is taking a change and is going a different direction. And with the intergovernmental program taking place this year, along with some tax incentives from some very, very big companies, we may be helping the taxpayers of this county to handle Graysdale as it should be. So that's all my input for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
This is related to the CCAP conference I went to. And when I went to it, I was talking to Bob, and there was a panel I went to in regard to retaining children and youth caseworkers. And there was a panel, and the panel had the Supreme Court Justice Max Baer from Pennsylvania, had Common Pleas Judge Linda Cordeo. It had the Director of Children and Family in Court, Sandy Moore, and it had Kathy Utz, the Department of Director of Children and Youth. And the reason I'm bringing up these names is, like, I was very impressed to be in a room with a panel being led by Max Baer, and he is really into the details. And the discussion in regards to retention and what we have to do. In one respect, it was very interesting because I think we had the players that were at the highest level who were interested in that. But when we went through the discussion, frankly, it's such a hard job. You can't, money for many of them is not the driver, and they get burnt out. And so that was like the disheartening part of it. But again, what the upbeat part was when I went in and at the end, which was the good thing about this, is I got to meet these people, and when they found out I was from Northampton County, they said, "Oh, you got Kevin Dolan. You got the good one. You got, And I was so pleased. They were so happy. It turns out that Kevin helped put the presentation together that they actually gave. And in Pennsylvania, we have a AOPC, which is the administrative office of our unified card system, and they break for children and youth. There's 3 tiers, like the really good counties, and then going down the road. Northampton is one of the leads in a really good county. So I wanted to share that. Along the same vein, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and I went to an event that the children and youth had, and it was a blue cupcake event because Peg was there, and it was because the Pennsylvania caseworkers, children and youth caseworkers, were given an award from the Family Support Alliance, and it was unique because all the caseworkers got it, and it was a write-up. And I'm actually going to give this to Linda. I'm not going to read it here, but it can actually be pretty emotional when you read what these people go through and their motivation to do a good job. So I just wanted to share that. It was some very good experience. Well, I did actually, when they actually sort of made us promise at the end of the panel discussion that we would go back with their head of children and youth and go through the presentation that we got. And I told them I would. So when I came back, I sat down with Kevin and Allison, and we went through it. So it was an eye-opener for me.
But I also was at that event. I just have to tell you how Justice Baer, how passionate he still is. Even though he is now a Supreme Court justice, he just has this incredible passion, even for children and youth, and even handed out a cell phone number to everyone to call him, with questions and thoughts. So it was an impressive group.
Wow. Mr. Dietz and then Mr. Geisinger.
Yes, a couple months ago, we passed that resolution for stepping up, which was dealing with the mental health in the prison systems. Last week, there was a webinar that I was on for a while, and all across the counties, a lot of counties passed the resolution, but basically still trying to get together and a way to implement a program to actually do it. And there's another one with CCAP coming up next week for it. So hope we get more information and work with the counties to get a blueprint and figure out a way we can deal with this.
That's not in Vegas, is it?
It is not. It was on the phone. I was home.
Just thought I'd ask.
Holly Chill.
Mr. Geisinger?
Thank you, Mr. President. My report is in reference to the continuing development of the plan for Braden Air Park by the Board of Governors of the Northampton County Airport Authority, or the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. We met this morning as an executive committee with the executive committee of the Board of Governors met this morning, and then a number of other committees met subsequent to that, as Mr. Dietz will testify to. And I will state that come our next meeting in the second part of it, not our next meeting, but our final meeting of the May month, thank you, we will have the proposed plan that was approved by the Board of Governors to sanction the grant money that was put forth in order to bring Braden Air Park forward in economic development, bring an FBO back there, establish an appropriate building for operations. There's a lot of good things, and I will say that there are a lot of people sitting around this dais who put energy into keeping that air park and standing firm when the airport authority was making some bad choices in relation to that property, and it's paying off. We're going to have a viable operational air park again in Northampton County. I'm excited to bring that forward.
That's good news. Thank you. Any other liaison reports? Council clerk report? Nothing. Council solicitor? Okay. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want to welcome and thank our visitors from the Easton High School AP Government class, I believe it is. And I believe that the AP testing starts in 2 weeks, so I want to wish you all best of luck. And
congratulate the lacrosse team for winning tonight.
Congratulations to the lacrosse players that won earlier today. And after the meeting, you're more than welcome to come up, and if you want us to sign your agendas, we'd be happy to do so. With that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Benall, seconded by Mr. Kraft. Have a nice evening, everyone. This one?